Now we're going to take a look at adding and subtracting vectors. And going back in the notes for a minute, I want to take a look at adding and subtracting vectors. This says geometrically, but kind of using the graph of these. So when we have two vectors, when we add or subtract them, one method that's commonly used, so in this first example here, we have this vector u and we have this vector v. When we add these u and v's, as I said, a common method that's used is to write your initial vector. So here we have our vector u, and then at the terminal point of u, you place your vector that you're adding. So in this case, vector v. So here's u, and now we're adding or continuing on from the end of u, we're proceeding along vector v. And the answer to this addition problem, looking at the geometry of it, is this vector here, this u plus v. This is what's known as the resultant force, or the result of the addition. Now, on this side, we have a subtraction. Blocking this out for now, here's our vector u. So here's our vector u, and here's our vector v. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to subtract u from v. So let's take a look at what it means to subtract u or minus u. We can see it's the same magnitude, it's the same distance, but now this minus u, starting at the same initial point, is going the same distance, the same length, but in the opposite direction. So this u, this v minus u, here we have our vector v, and now at the end or terminal point of our vector v, we're going to go length u, but in the opposite direction. So we're taking this vector here, this minus u, and we're putting it up here. And the resultant vector now, this v minus u, is this vector here. So this would be the answer to the subtraction, again, looking at this from a geometric standpoint, just to give you an idea of what this means. If you're using vectors for forces, that you can see how in the direction that these answers are going to be in. Taking a look at this subtraction now, just doing the algebra, if you will, and not considering the picture of it. When we have two vectors, when we add them, as it says here, we're going to add the I component information, and that will sit in front of the I, and we are going to add the J component, or the B's, because B1, B2, this is the J information. So we add the A's, that sits in front of I, we add the B's, and that sits in front of J. For a subtraction, what we're going to do, same thought, we're going to be combining A's and A's and B's and B's, but now the vector that is being subtracted, the sign in front of the B's, the sign in front of this vector is going to change. So this A is going to have its sign flipped, and this B is going to have its sign flipped. So you don't flip the signs of the B's. Forget I said that. You flip the signs of the A and B in the vector that's being subtracted. Two examples here. First, we're going to add these two vectors. So to add these vectors, here, we're going to add what's in front of the i's. So we have 7 plus 4. So this is going to be 7 plus 4i. And now we're going to add what's in front of the j's. So we have 3 and negative 5. So 3 minus 5, and that's the j. So 7 plus 4, we have 11i. 3 minus 5, we have minus 2j. So this is a new vector, which is the result of adding these two. So if we were to sketch this vector, and then at the end of this, we were to attach this vector, and look at our resultant vector, this would be the information 11 in the direction of x and negative 2 in the direction of y. So this is a new vector here. I don't know what I'm going to, well, maybe I'll just call it v plus w. I was tempted to give it a name, but I don't want to confuse things. Now we're going to do a subtraction here. So we're looking at vector v and we're subtracting vector w. So the first thing I want to do here is let's look at what the negative of vector w would be. So remember, this vector is going to have the same length as w, but now it's going to be going in the opposite direction. So since w was positive 4, it's now going to be negative 4i. And since it was negative 5j, now we're going to have positive 5j. So here is our negative w, or vector w going in the opposite direction. And now we are going to be combining these. So my vector v minus vector w is now going to be 7 minus 4. So 7 minus 4i. And for our j information, it's going to be 3. And now we're not going to use w because we're doing a subtraction. It's going to be 3 plus 5j. So finishing this up, 7 minus 4, we have 3i, and then 3 plus 5, we have 8j. So this would be the resultant vector. Again, if we were to sketch our vector v, and now at the end of vector v, if we were to continue in the opposite direction of w, the resultant vector would be 3 in the direction of x, and now positive 8 in the direction of y.